I have been finding myself very, very curious lately about why specific words are disappearing from our everyday conversations, right? In spiritual communities, there's a lot of talk of consciousness and awareness and manifestation and even choice. Just about the only word that every person understands in that, as far as what it means, what it is. Um, but there's lots of conversations on that, right? But we've stopped talking in that line of thinking about conscience. We've stopped talking about things like integrity, honor, dignity. We've been chasing love, but love is just relationship. It is the field of relationship. If you are in relationship with something, you are in love. We don't form relationships with things that we don't love. So love is the field of relationship. We don't have a problem with love. We have a problem with the values that drive our choices, that lead to our behaviors and actions. And consciousness talks about this using thoughts and manifestation and focusing on your feelings, but none of those words are values, principles. If you don't know what your values and your principles are, and you are aiming at love like it's a feeling, you're going to miss the mark every time, because love is not a sensation in the body. It is the field of relationship. It is the choice to engage. That is love. And it's not like either. I can like a person's clothing or not like a person's clothing, but if I am in a relationship with them, I am in love. Love is relationship. That's why you can separate those two, because one is a descriptor of physical, observable, interpretable by my physical senses things. Love is the field of relationship. So as soon as I choose, yes, this is what I want, that is love, no matter what it is. It can be a rock, it can be your partner. The degrees of relationship change, right? The amount of investment in a particular relationship changes, but love is the field of relationship. I'm really, really curious, and it's been on my mind a lot, to get back to what I'm really trying to get at, because I'm not trying to talk about love. I'm trying to talk about conscience, the values and the principles. When we're talking about manifesting, hold on just a second. My dog was doing something. I had to intervene, so I apologize for that. To get back to where I was getting at, I am very, very curious as to why things like conscience have disappeared from our conversations. Nobody questions their conscience anymore, and your conscience is the voice inside you that speaks on behalf of your value set, right? It is the little voice that guides us. It is the knowing of alignment. That is your conscience. If I value honesty and someone is being manipulative with me, covert, right? It's not obvious, and I have something inside me that feels off. Your body feels it, right? It is destabilized in that moment. That is an aspect of conscience telling you that something is out of alignment with your values. That isn't about the thoughts in your head needing to change or be interacted with. It is becoming aware. I have taken in information, my body destabilized in its sensors, my conscious mind, my attention noticed and began to scan the field of selection for the opportunity to make a choice. Running into interference, which means I must be onto something that wants me to get distracted enough I lose track of what I'm saying, so I can't say it. Right. So now that I have been derailed a little bit, and I'm not going to back it up to replay because then I have to splice it, and I'd rather just pause and keep going. I was speaking about conscience disappearing from our conversation, and about how in the field of selection, when things come into the body, we detect the destabilization because our body is programmed to follow what we value. And when something doesn't match our values, it destabilizes. Right? That's our survival system kicks in, or because it reminds us of something unsafe, right? And safety is a value. It is a priority. So is being treated with respect. So you feel unsettled. And so is being treated with honor. When we're trying to work on our manifesting, I'm going to redirect a little bit or I'll go off on a tangent, and I don't want to. I want to get to the manifestation, right? Which is really just productivity. It's our production. It's what we do. It is what is produced as a result of the actions we take based on the choices we make in alignment with our values. That's manifestation. Manifestation produces what you choose, either consequence or reward, right? Because we're here to learn, but it is all about values and choices. If we get a consequence for a choice that we made, it is because we weren't quite in alignment with our values. And so we swing the pendulum the other way. We adjust our actions in the ways that we were able to reflect and determine were appropriate to correct our misalignment with our values. This may mean speaking up for myself when I have been silent and someone is, putting me down, or throwing wrenches in my cogs. Whatever. I'm losing the terms and that doesn't matter. Consciousness and everything that they are doing in any discussion in consciousness comes down to our ability to make choices that match what we value. And that is everything. Everything. But it's never been about love. It's been about our value system. But if they have you chasing love, they're having you chase something like air. It's around you. You are offered the opportunity in any given moment. Do you want to have a relationship with this song right now? Do you want to have a relationship with this dog, with this person, with this event? Those are all states of love. You are in the field of love when you engage in relationship with anything. So if they have you chasing it, it sends you off in the wrong directions, and it misguides you away from your values, because your values are supposed to be how you express love through your form. They are how you contribute to the field of relationship. How are you showing up? That's manifestation. How are you showing up in your own life? And all life is entering the field of selection, the field of choices. Things enter your awareness. We are here to experience. That is life. It is the experience and to learn. But if you're having problems with your manifestation and achieving your goals, perhaps the problem is no one's talking about conscience, values. Do you have them? Or are you operating under autopilot ones that somebody else gave you from Depression era mindsets set on survival and war? Because that's a lot of the trauma we're unpacking culturally. Our Industrial Revolution, World War II, Cold War, and Great Depression trauma responses in our society. Hoarding behaviors, the accumulation of wealth into small areas, grabbing for power, being secretive, manipulative to get your needs met. You know, so many of us had to parent ourselves growing up that we didn't have adults to teach us how to live in our bodies, to tell us that when your heart is racing, it's talking. And that when you feel it talking, you pull up your list of values and you weigh everything against, is this in my value system or not? And whatever isn't in your value system is what's making your heart go, whoa. Or something has entered that is your value system that wasn't there before, right? Because the only difference between anxiety and excitement are what we're telling ourselves. That's all this is, all it is. There's a spiritual aspect to it. There's an other side to it, because you are the compression point, but there is consciousness beyond you. So there is more. There is nuance, and nuance is the context that makes your frequency unique. It is yours and only yours. And it is based entirely on what your field of awareness detects in the field of selection. That is what you are here to do, is experience that. But if you don't know what your values and your principles are, how are you going to regulate your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors to line up with your manifestations, your goals, your product? How can we do all of this if we're not talking about conscience and values? If we're not talking about what truth is, and we're just throwing it around like a term and assuming that anything that is inside of us is true? Because not everything that occurs inside me is true. My body doesn't lie, but my thoughts, which have, again, been conditioned and programmed through ancestral and epigenetic trauma responses to function in a time period that isn't relevant today. Then how am I ever going to achieve that state of fulfillment that is full alignment with my values? So anyway, I just wanted to throw this out here. I wanted it to kind of ramble a little bit. I'm not really even trying to say anything other than, why aren't we talking about this anymore? Why are we getting so convoluted and inflated in our language when nobody's getting burned at stakes anymore? No one's hanging on crosses anymore. So we don't have to muddy the water with professional jargon that the everyday person doesn't have the education to understand and apply, because we felt broken, went to therapy, learned a word, and before we even knew what it was within ourselves or had mastered it, we're already teaching everybody else. I did this, so I'm not accusing anybody of anything I didn't do. I felt excited with my healing, so I brought home the information and tried to give it to other people, and that was not where their point of compression was. But then that language became mainstream and conversational without the education and understanding that backs up and supports these things. And so we've muddied the language, and we don't need the gatekeepers anymore. We do not live 2,000 years ago. We have access to information. We have access to each other. Our field of relationship is a lot tighter. It's a lot more receptive than it ever has been. Like, the ability to be in union now is easier than ever. And that is only going to get more and more accessible. And so why are we still gatekeeping our language so much? If you really want to change your life, realize that you are the point of compression where everything that exists is brought into your awareness and your body detects it, funnels it to your attention, says, hey, here's this thing that we haven't seen before. And your attention goes, does it match my values? Yes or no? It's a yes or no question. Does it match my values? Accept or reject. And then we act on that. That's all it is. But you have to know what your values are, because that's your axis. If you don't know what your values and your principles are, your guiding principles, your conscience, it's how are you going to manifest if you're still attacking thoughts and behaviors without addressing values, what they are and how to live them? It's the only question I have. Why aren't we using these words? Let's bring them back. People out here are just out here being dicks because they can and blaming it on their trauma because they don't have a value system. And no one's giving it to them. No one's giving it to you. No one's giving it to me. We have to find it. We are the meaning makers. We have to do it. But we're going to keep doing this and projecting more of this until we start working with our values. And I'm just really curious why we're not talking about them. Why have these words gone away? Who is it convenient for that they have? Not me. I'm bringing them back. I'm using them. I'm not letting anybody in my life that doesn't know how to operate in honor, dignity, integrity, valor. Had to work too hard. Had to work too hard to develop those words in myself. I'm not going to go back to less than where I'm at now in my value system. Why would I do that? I listened to the canary. I got out of the coal mine. Not going to do that. So now my attention is very expensive because I know what my values look like. I know what they act like, sound like. So now my attention knows exactly what to zero in on and what not to zero in on and what to select and not select. So now my attention is a lot more expensive. And so guess what I have a lot more of for myself? Energy, time, space, freedom, the ability to think without really, really dying on the inside with what's going on in my head. I enjoy being inside myself so much now that I'm still waiting for the rest of this to give me something even halfway as entertaining. And so we need to start talking about values again. When we start talking about values again, I start seeing them out there, then maybe I'll start coming out a little bit more. Who knows? But anyway, we need to discuss these things. We need to have them. We need to be talking about what they look like. What does it mean to act like these things? And then the behaviors sort out themselves. And then you won't have a problem figuring out how to be them because you just step into them. Your body knows how to, once you find them, once you go, hey, this is my value. And yeah, that feels right. That feels, not letting people call me names feels great. That's easy to spot. I know what to do when it happens because I know what the value is. Anyway, I want to keep it simple. I want to talk about values. I want to talk about how to live this thing. I love having all of the other spiritual conversations. I want to have those too, but not without talking about our values and our principles. Anyway, I'm still waiting. I'm waiting for those to start showing up in my feed because it does that whenever I address something. I watch it show up. So anyway, now I'm excited. Let's talk about values. Ooh, honor. Let's talk about honor. Anyway, have a good day.